Hello and welcome to FinTech Talk. Today we're looking at the Customer Duty Act, which is set to really revolutionize the way banks and financial services organizations treat their customers. It's no longer good enough to act in the interest of shareholders. It's now imperative to really think about customers' want and need. And it's mandatory in the UK to go out of your way to really make sure customers understands the products and services being recommended to them. But what does it really mean? What does the Act imply for banks and financial services organizations? It's really not clear. And bear in mind, the Financial Conduct Authority has said it will aggressively go after organizations that violate the Act. It's worth knowing. So here at FinTech Talk, we thought we'd have a one-to-one with someone who knows the Act inside out, a man who's written extensively on the subject to really discover how we can best respond. So may I introduce Gilles Talbot, who is the head of insurance EMEA at Genesis. Now, Genesis is one of the world's largest and leading providers of contact centers, not just for financial services organizations, but multiple different industries. And Genesis is a company that has thought long and hard about how to go the extra mile in understanding user behavior. So, and Gilles has a good theory on how to respond to the Act. So, Gilles, it's lovely to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm fine, Charles. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Cool. Well, let's just cut to it because people want to know. The Act is seen generally as something that is onerous, that is a pain in the rear end. But I think you have a different take on it. I've read your stuff, and you see it as an opportunity. Perhaps you could just tell us, what is your take on the Act?
Yes, I think it's an opportunity, right? Because usually, our customers, when you hear compliance, you start to be kind of scared. Say another thing I have to apply, I have to jump to that hoop again, and this is going to be costly, and I'm going to get nothing out of it. But that's not the case with the Act. Because if you think about it, what the Act is telling us is to put the customers first, to think about the customers. And customer centricity is something every customer of Genesis is talking about today. Every organization in the financial services, especially, every bank or insurance I'm talking to today is talking about customer centricity. So the Act is an opportunity.
Great. It's an opportunity to go above and beyond. And I think you described it as one of your blogs as potentially the North Star that should guide the orientation of a bank or financial service provider. They should think, how can we take this in the spirit in which it's intended and really become, as you say, customer centric and sell things not just that the bank or insurer can shift and flog as they used to, but really find out what it is customers need and jump through those hoops. So perhaps we could just run through some of the provisions, because some people watching will be thinking, heard of the Act, not too sure what it is. Can you just maybe just give us an overview as to some of the things it says?
So what the Act says is that you need to create products and services that are adapted to your customers. You need to provide your customers the support they need when they need it. And then you need to provide communication that your customers understand. Because especially in financial services, that's an issue we all know. Sometimes, your bank or your insurer is speaking jargon. They're speaking their own language, and you don't get it as a consumer. And what the Act is telling is, don't fool your customers. It has to be understandable for your customers. It has to be easy for them to get the information they need. And when they need support from you, they should get that support easily. That's basically what the Act is telling us.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, the FCA talk about helpful and accessible customer support. So it's as easy to sort out a problem, switch or cancel your product as it was to buy in the first place. Now, that's a surprisingly high bar. We can all take out a financial product, but we know trying to get in touch with a bank and have a chat with people is pretty difficult. I've said again on this show, I love Monzo, I love Revolut, but actually getting in touch with them, okay, you can use the app. It's not always that easy. I mean, you get a hold of maybe a contact service agent who, do you want to be discussing financial planning and financial products with someone who you're not sure how well trained they are or how qualified they are? So how can organizations meet that bar? How can they make sure that customers are quickly able to get hold of the right person? And how can people know that they're talking to someone who's qualified to give advice?
Two things. When the Act tells us that we need to focus on customer first, it means we need to adapt to what the customer wants and when the customer wants it. There is no one size fits all. The same customer might be very happy to do something on his own, on self-service. If I want to check my bank account, I can do that easily by myself using the app. But to your point, if I want to talk about financial services, about a specific product, I want to talk to someone. So what organizations need to be able to do is to find the right balance between digital and self-service and getting the customer in touch with the right agent.
Yeah.
And the point is, how can technology help us with that? If you think about AI, I have to talk about AI, right? Everybody's talking about AI right now, but AI brings a great opportunity to provide better service to customers. And if we're talking about making sure that the right customer talks to the right agent, that's the kind of thing that AI can help do with what we call predictive routing. Let me explain what it is, because I know that's kind of, it might sound complex, but what predictive routing does is analyze a lot of data, because we do have a lot of data now. So, right, we can analyze the data about our customer, analyze past data and say, based on historical data, we know that a customer with that profile will be better served by this agent, because we have a lot of data, historical data, to determine who is the best agent to talk to that customer. Instead of saying the first available agent will talk to that customer, we are going to use AI to say, instead of the first available, we are going to make that customer talk to this agent because he's the best to support, I don't know, somebody that age, for instance, if we know the customer's age, just to give you an example. So it's really about focusing on the customer first.
I love it, because we've all had the experience of going through a kind of interactive, voice system. Press 3 for so and so, press 5 for someone else, and it's a complete nightmare. I mean, you're not listening. You end up having to go back to the start. As you say, you're just routed through to the next available operator. So with this AI system, is this something that's new? Is it cutting edge, or is it something that's been around for years? I mean, I've no idea. I'm guessing a lot of my viewers have no idea. So tell us, just how developed and mature is the idea of sort of AI call routing?
So we've been talking about AI for a long time in customer service. And let me clarify, when we talk about AI, there are different types of AI. So we have the predictive AI, that's the one I was talking about earlier, about the predictive routing. And this one I've been around for a couple of years now, so it's quite mature and quite efficient. Our customers using it have seen decrease in their average handling time. Why? Because when you route a customer interaction to the right agent, of course, it's going to handle that interaction faster. So at the end of the day, your average handling time is going to decrease. The other kind of AI we always talk about is conversational AI, bots. Everybody knows bots, right? And I was talking about self-service before. For this kind of simple tasks, simple requests, but the technology is quite mature and bots are quite efficient. One thing to be careful about, though, with bots is make sure that you're not going to replace your agent with bots. The worst case scenario from a customer standpoint is to be stuck with a bot, because the bot may not have all the answers. And one thing you need to do, especially when the Act tells you that you need to provide the right service to your customers, if the bot does not have the answer, you have to make sure that you can escalate to a live agent, not to just a live agent. Yeah.
Let's just drill into that, because, I mean, this is cutting edge stuff. I mean, the theory is you should now be able to deploy ChatGPT and some of the other generative AIs as conversational bots. But the trouble is they're in that very awkward middle ground between providing the illusion of passing the Turing test and having genuine conversations with users to an almost a freakishly fluent degree, but also having these hallucitations where they will go off script, create scientific references that do not exist, confidently state things that are utterly false, and therefore maybe are less advanced than the very old-fashioned, just branch-based AIs. Where do you stand on this?
So where do we stand? I agree. The technology is there. You can play with it we have all tried ChatGPT. That's fun, right? But when it comes to your customers, what our customers are telling us, the banks and insurance I'm working with today are telling me that they're not ready to put their customers in front of generative AI and just leave them with it because of the hallucination and everything you mentioned earlier. So a good use of generative AI today that you can use today is use it internally to make the life of the employees easier, but again, always with some level of control. Because when the act tells us that you need to provide the right service to your customers, it means your agents have to be able to provide that service to their customers. So it's also about empowering your agent and make them more efficient and saving time. And an example of what generative AI can do for agent is, if you've been working in the contact center for years, you know that every agent has to, at the end of the call, do a summary of the call manually. And generative AI can do that for them. So we can have AI listening to the call, and at the end of the call, creating the call summarization. And then all your agent has to do is read it, say it's okay, and then send it to the CRM, for instance.
Well, that's fantastic. That's such a time saver. I love just being able to offer people practical advice. And that's something that I think almost everyone could benefit from. Now, I know that Genesis has an advantage that you deal with multiple different industries, and banking, for lots of reasons, including well-justified ones, is not always cutting edge, nor should it be. But I wonder which industries, which clients you have, which sectors do you think is most cutting edge in making use of AI in the contact center? I mean, is it right to say that banking is not necessarily cutting edge here because banks are held back by regulators and by you just don't want to go wrong with it? Whereas maybe if you're in retail, you can really experiment because if you're flogging, I don't know, AirPods, there's a limit to how badly you can screw people's lives up.
Exactly, and if you take retail or telco, for instance, you don't have the weight of regulation that you have in banking, in insurance, right? And if you say that banking is not cutting edge, insurance is even worse, right? So, I mean, the typical industry where you can learn from is retail has always been, cutting edge when it comes to digital. Because they started, we all started shopping online a long time ago, right? Way before we started, being able to have a sign, have your car or home policy online. We only been able to do that for a couple of years to really do it online, right? I'm not talking about filling my name and address and somebody will call me back. I'm talking about really, filling in for a new insurance policy or a new bank account online. So the retail industry and the telco industry have always been more cutting edge when it comes to innovating in terms of contact center and technology.
I think that's really nice. So do you find that some of your banking customers ask you for advice on how they can improve their systems, and that you're able to take lessons learned in other industries and say, hey guys, you know what, these retailers have done this, you could be doing the same thing in a few years' time? Does it work that way?
Yeah, it does. Because again, to your point, the fact that we have customers in every industry really allows us to share best practices. But we also see some banks that really change their mindset and really want to move to a more digital approach, right? So Rabobank, for instance, in the Netherlands, is a Genesis customer. And they decided really to move to digital channels, to allow their customers to interact with them with digital channels, to offer chatbots for self-service. But again, the idea is not to force the customers to the self-service, because if your self-service capability, if your bot is designed well enough, your customers are going to use it. And today at Rabobank, 45% of interactions on digital channels, on the chat on their website, are answered by the bot. 45% of them don't need to escalate to a live agent. And they have a 90% satisfaction score for that channel.
That's fantastic. And I can assume that customers who've had good experiences will come back. The service is only going to improve from here on in. So that's the thin end of a wedge, one hopes. And what's your experience about users, though? Is there maybe a generational difference? I don't know if you have data on this. I mean, Gen Z is famous for not wanting to talk to people. They want to do things on their mobile via the app, if possible.
Yes. So Gen Z will want to do everything on their mobile if possible. But again, it's all about the context. Because what we found out, specifically in the insurance industry, is even Gen Z, when you have a claim and there is emotion involved, you want to talk to someone.
Yeah.
So yes, the generation, I mean, Gen Z and everything, and the generation has an impact, but it's always a matter of context. There is always a point in your journey as a customer, specifically for insurance, when you want to talk to someone.
Okay, we've got just a comment from one of the members of the audience. Ian Skelton makes something which is a really valuable point, and one I just not occurred to me. He says that Genesis is used by Lighthouse Works in the US, where all users are blind, and you need to take measures to empower and assist customers and employees, whatever their needs. And again, this fits in not just with the Act, but within an ethos generally of being more accessible. It's not something you find that, dealing with blind customers, it's not something that really occurred to me, is something that banks are able to do a lot better.
Yeah, because the technology now allows you to with voice recognition and speech recognition, it allows you to have a conversation with your blind customers and make their life easier. And the technology now is good enough, because if you go back, let's say 10 years ago, the speech to text, the text to speech capabilities were kind of, robotic. You really felt like you were talking to a robot. Today, this technology is mature enough so that you feel like you're talking to someone, right? So it can really, for customers with disabilities, it's really more convenient for them to interact with their bank or their insurance company.
Okay. I loved in the Rabobank, you were able to provide not just usage, but also satisfaction score. I think it's really important. We actually have another question. Carl Sarich asks, says he's curious as to understand how technology can help evaluate and provide data to help an organization prove they're doing the right things. We all want to do the right thing, but it really helps to have that data. But how can that be, best used? Do you find people moving simply beyond customer satisfaction score? What are the metrics do you use? I mean, is it time on call? Is it, whether people need to call back to complete an action? What ways do you have of evaluating success?
It's a lot of things, because just the time spent on the call is not enough, right? Because if you spend a lot of time on the phone with an agent as a consumer, but at the end of the call, the agent provided all the answers you needed and was really helpful, you are going to be satisfied about that. You are going to, and if they ask you the question about the Net Promoter Score, you are going to give a good score. So it's not just about average and mean time. And for that, we, again, I was talking about AI, and I believe AI can help with that, because this data that we have voice of the customer, we have everything, we have data about interactions. How long did the customer spend with an agent? How long has this customer been on hold, right? And with AI, you can analyze all of this data to understand the customer journey, right? With what we call journey analytics, you can really understand what your customers go through and start improving things. And that's what and if you want to, react and be ready for the Consumer Duty Act, the first thing you need to do is to understand your customers. There is a bank in the UK we are working with. I cannot give their name, but they really wanted to help their vulnerable customers. And for that, the first thing they did was to use surveys to really understand their customers' needs. So step one is understanding their customers. So they do that doing a survey, talking to their customers. But technology can also help you with that, because journey analytics can really help you understand your customer journeys and more importantly, visualize your customer's journey and identify gaps in the journey. Right? You can see, for instance, where you lose your customers when you have a self-service journey where the customer is supposed to do things on his own, you can see how many customers actually escalate to a live agent where they could have done the same thing on their own. So you can understand maybe the process is too complex for our customers. Maybe they don't understand. And usually that's the start of an optimization of the customer journey.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's really reflects what's been happening in retail for a long time, where this argument about gut versus data, that if you're collecting the right data, you really can get customers extremely well. And everything therefore is based on evidence. We actually have a nice subtle point from Phil Sutton, one of our viewers, who's interested in just this balancing of using technology with our the dread word sort of regulation. But he asks, how do companies balance the use of technology for consumer engagement while ensuring data privacy and compliance with consumer duty regulations? And how do you balance that? I mean, data privacy, as we know, especially with stuff with generative AI, some of the makers like OpenAI are sort of at war with some of the existing privacy legislation because they say, they need to break a few rules to make the AI work. A lot of that's in court. But what's your view? Does this pose any sort of threat to privacy?
No threat, because there is a regulation and we need to comply to that regulation. So our platform is GDPR compliant, obviously, and we have a dedicated team working on that, ensuring that we are compliant with everything, especially with data privacy, because we don't want any issues with our customers, and we don't want our customers to have any issues with the legislation. So we have a dedicated team on that, and we have all kinds of certifications when it comes to data privacy and cloud security, for instance, because of course that's the first thing that comes to mind, especially when you talk to bankers and insurers, right? People managing risk, so they don't want to have this kind of problem. So yeah, definitely there is a topic, but it is addressed by our platform and by our solutions.
Okay, I'd like to return just to the ethos of this act, that it should not be seen as just a nuisance to comply with, but that it should be used as the springboard for creating an organization that is genuinely altruistic and philanthropic towards its users. And since you are the expert in this field, I'd like to ask you just about how banks and insurers view their contact center, because I'm sure for a lot of them see it as something they can outsource, and some of them kind of forget about it. You've given the job to somebody else. It's annoying customers ringing up with niggling problems, with requests that banks may feel could be handled with a click on the website, or customers have not understood something and therefore it's annoying. What's the range in your customers? I mean, do you have banks who view the customer center as a kind of outsourced annoyance, or are there some who thought, you know what, this is our direct pipeline or connectivity to the customer, and that it's simply one of the best ways of understanding customers? What's the spectrum of view of the work that you do?
There was a shift, and it was for me, it was a long time ago. Yes, to your point, at some point, the contact center was seen as a cost center where we were trying to spend not that much time with customers, right? And back in the days, average handling time was the main KPI, and the instruction was you need to spend less than 2 minutes over the phone with the customers. Just to give you an idea, I'm exaggerating, but just to give you an idea of how contact centers operated. It was only about efficiency. We didn't care about the customer. You had to spend 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the phone with the customers, and that's it. Even if the customer's problem is not solved, you spend your 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And guess what? When those banks started doing voice of the customer programs, asking their customers if they were satisfied, they were not. So they realized that actually the contact center is the front door of the organization. And that customer experience starts with the contact center because it's the front door, right? And it's your brand that's represented in the contact center. And with social media, now customers can complain about pretty much everything, and they can do it publicly. Because back in the days, if a customer was unhappy, he would try to call again and ask to talk to a supervisor and explain that he's not happy with his bank or with his insurer. Today, he will go on Twitter, on X, he will go on social media and say, oh, my bank sucks. And you don't want that. And you realize, banks and insurers realize that their contact center is a good way to avoid that. And that's when we started talking about empathy. And again, that takes us back to the act. Everything the act is telling us is to put the customer first. And when you act with empathy, that's what you do.
Okay. I mean, you've dealt with so many organizations who've gone through restructuring processes and rethinking the way they deal with their customers. Could you just talk us through the sequence? So if someone's watching this and thinking, oh, our organization's a little crude at this stuff, we're behind the curve, the act has been introduced and we haven't reacted, we need to do something. What are the sequences of behaviors that take organizations from bog standard to world class? What do you recommend? Is there like a 3-step program, a 5-step program? What do you advise people?
We usually have, when we do that kind of transformation with our customers, we have a 3-phase approach. We call standardization, optimization, and innovation.
Okay.
The standardization piece is getting rid of your multiple systems, because what happened in the past is we started with voice, because we were talking about call centers back in the days, right? It was voice only. Then customers wanted to interact via email or chat, and then we added multiple different technologies, social media. But from a technology standpoint, what happened is that we added different layers, different silos, not talking to each other. And we realized that their customers, if they started a conversation via email, they were not able to continue that conversation over the phone without restarting the conversation all over again. So what we call the standardization phase is creating a foundation to have one single platform to handle all of your customer interaction, to really create a seamless conversation with your customers, right? So that's the first phase. And technology is not everything. It has to be part of a change of mindset, because putting your customers first is not something that you decide to do overnight and just execute on it, right? Even if you understand the value of it, being able to execute on that. Say that you're an insurance company. You have 4 or 5 different policy administration systems, claims management systems. So even if you want to be customer-centric, your technology does not allow you to do that because of those silos, because of those legacy technologies. So it's a whole. It's a strategy to decide to put the customer first. And then you need the right technology to be able to execute on that strategy. And one good way to do it, to execute on it, is to start thinking from the customer standpoint. And again, that takes us back to the act. That's everything the act is telling us. Focus on your customers.
Well, and I love the fact that the contact center's got such high standards on this, because a lot of people will be thinking, you know, banks and insurers know best, but not the case at all. So sorry, Gilles, just keep going and conclude the process.
No. So I was saying one good way. It's about first understanding the customers. And remember, back in the days, if we go a couple of years back, everybody was talking about customer journey mapping. And I think that was a perfect start, because it was really about understanding what your customers go through. And with data spread across many different systems, it was hard sometimes to do that, to build those customer maps. And again, that's where AI, the technology, can help make a difference, because the journey analytics piece I was talking about earlier, again, can help do that. It can help you visualize your customer journey and identify the gaps. Because as I always say, you cannot improve what you don't understand. So if you don't understand your customer journeys, how can you improve it?
For sure. And just tell me, you know, occasionally we like to be rude on this show. How bad is the insurance industry at this stuff? I mean, it's so variable. I mean, I can be quite rude about insurance companies and their terrible technology. And I've heard some good explanations as to why they're so far behind, because people renew quotes once a year, so you can kind of piss them off with your crappy back end. What's your experience? If anyone's from the insurance industry here to be rude about your profession, but it's not your profession. So what's your view? I mean, people are delusional. They think my organization's wonderful. Maybe they don't, but just how far behind is the insurance industry? in this?
We started upsetting every insurer on the call, so let's carry on with that. So
Okay,
what we usually say is that insurance is 10 years behind banks.
good metric. 10
10 years
years.
behind, and
Okay,
you
that's
said
being polite.
yourself that yeah, that's being polite. 10 years behind bank when it comes to no. So more seriously, the issue, if I can talk about an issue with insurance, is like you said. When was the last time that you had an interaction with your insurance company?
It happens once a year. And I just got a car insurance quote from Direct Line, 60% more than last year. No explanation as to why. No idea why. Nothing's changed. So classic insurer.
If you do a survey and ask people when was the last time that you had an interaction with your insurance company, most of them won't even remember.
Yeah.
If you ask the same question about their banks, most of them will have checked their bank account on their mobile app at least in the morning or the day before.
Yeah.
So yes, insurers have not been they have not been focusing on customer experience for years because of that. Because if you think about it, insurance is a product, a service that is sold and bought with the hope of not being used.
For
So
sure.
when you start with that, why would you care about customer experience? And for years, insurers have been managing claims numbers and policy numbers, not customers.
Yeah. It is.
Right?
It's a whole new world for them to think about customers in that regard, especially with some of the more sort of, I don't know, mass market consumer products like car insurance, where the numbers of customers are immense and customers, spend 10 minutes getting a quote and then disappear for a year. Very, very difficult to see each customer as an individual.
So the competition was only on price. They were competing only on price. If you saw a commercial for an insurance company on TV, it would only be mentioning how much you can save a year if you come to them, right? But today they understand that it's not enough, because yes, the price will attract your customers, but once they have a claim and they have a terrible experience with that claim because the management of that claim was terrible, you are going to lose that customer.
So tell me, if we've got about, I think, just a few minutes left. If people are watching this and think, yeah, we would like to improve the way we think about our customers and learn from your experiences with your contact centers, what are we talking in terms of price and time? What's a realistic time frame for reinventing the way contact centers work to improve and comply with this act? And just, I mean, you can't give us a number, but is this an expensive process? Because, with banks, some things like updating a core banking system, you're talking 3 to 5 year project. You're talking many zeros on the end of whatever number you can pull out your head. It's a brutally expensive process, but this sounds like this could be a fairly quick win. Give us some metrics. I mean, with your clients, what's a project, so start to finish time turnaround? Months, years?
Actually, we're talking about weeks, not months.
Okay.
Because now that the technology is in the cloud. 10 years ago, when all the technology was on premise, you had to, let's say, build everything. Now the technology is available in the cloud, so our customers are up and running in 6 weeks. Right? So it means in 6 weeks you could replace your awful IVR with 8 choices at the first level with a bot asking your customers why they are calling. And that's the kind of pace of innovation we have today. And that's why I was saying that the act is an opportunity. Because with this kind of technology, with this kind of innovation, you can innovate fast enough so that you can leverage the act to exceed your customer expectation.
Fantastic. Okay, well, Gilles, I love the ethos. I love the idea that this is not some act that is a piece of legislation to put the squeeze on organizations, that they really can view it as an opportunity to become altruistic, empathetic, understanding organizations who really do provide financial products that customers want and need. And we're all going to benefit in the long run from it. I think it's a wonderful ethos. I know we just wanted to recommend a few useful things for our viewers. I believe you guys have an event in the UK, in London. It's called Experience. It's held at the Brewery, and it's on the 18th of June. People can find information can we provide the link if that's possible? And if people would like a demo from Genesis just to see what can be achieved in terms of improving the customer experience. That's possible too. I'm going to provide a link for that. And Gilles, we had just one last question, if you'd like to answer it. I'm not sure whether we're in a position to, but it's whether other industries could benefit something like this act, retail and telco, the sort of the mis-selling of products from Kyle Sarich. What do you think, Gilles? Is this act maybe a template for other industries to learn from? Because it's on the face of it, it's been really well received.
It should be. And why? Because, like I said before, the only thing the act is telling us is to be more customer-centric. And that's true regardless of the industry. You have to put your customers first. And that does not have to be true only for banks and insurers. It's the same for retailers. It's the same for telcos. So it should be a blueprint for all other industries.
Okay. Well, we'll end it there. Gilles Talbot, Head of Insurance at EMEA at Genesis. I hugely appreciate those insights. I'm in complete agreement. It's nice to have a disagreement, but no, we're not. I think the message that this is a springboard to become a better organization is a wonderful one. I love the fact there are quick wins available in weeks. That's not always true in financial services. And yeah, I hope people do explore more. So from myself and from Gilles, the FinTech Talk, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.